Welcome everybody to Trail Talk. This is leg number 15. I'm starting out at Pearisburg around the 27th of May. And if you go back to my 2016 videos, it's day 86 starting out. And you might remember this is where we had the decision when you come back out. Do you stay a purist or not? Because here down here at the hotel. And you either catch a ride back out to the trailhead, or you hitchhike back that way, or you hike back up. I hiked back up and back down, and you're rewarded with a waterfall that I put as the opening slide. So that's one of the rewards of at least going that way. All right, so you've gotten rid of your gear and your winter gear rather, and so now you're heading back up, and this starts what I call the long Virginia ridgeline walks, and where water management really started to become very, very critical. And there's a little bit of road walking you do through here, and there's a kind of an industrial type stuff you've got to go by, and you kind of start back up through this area here, and then you finally kind of start back up into the hills, and you come down through here, and there's a stream, and the actual there's a sign that warns you not to drink from the stream because it's coming out of a landfill. Now I don't know what happened. Did I start out with not enough water? Did I start off dehydrated so I drank a lot? But anyway, by the time I got up here and coming back down here towards Pocahontas, I was out of water and really feeling quite thirsty. But there is no water here. Well, there actually is. When you get down here, there's a sign that tells you to stay on Pocahontas Road because you're going through private land, and they don't want you to get off. So they want you to stay on the road. But there is a stream here that I stopped to get some water at, and to also find my first poisonous snake on the trail, which is a let's see if you can identify it, and I'll tell you what it is. Okay, that was a rather large timber rattler that I think walked by him when he was uncoiled in the grass, and then he came out crossing the road, and a bystander saw him and went over to start poking him with a stick, and it got him to curl up. I guess one of the characteristics of a timber rattler is they don't rattle to warn you that they're there. They stay stealthy, but they will warn you when you've pissed them off and they're going to bite you. So a rattling timber rattler is a bad thing. It's not a warning. It's a I'm getting ready to bite you. All right. So from there, the climb was pretty steady. Not too steep, but you got to kind of keep grinding, and there was a pipe spring. You definitely want to get the water. This is one of those you need to get the water before you get up there, because this unreliable water source 0.3 down the hill was in fact unreliable. Some guys went down there to try and get some water, and they ended up having to walk back to this pipe spring, okay, that was along the road. But you can imagine that if that is dry and this one's dry, there is no water at that site, and this is probably the next best place to get water. I wish I had continued on to this campsite. That's something that if I had to do it over again, I would have kept going. But here at the shelter where I stayed the night, there's plenty of tent camping. There's plenty of hammocking trees available. But because it is right outside of Pearisburg, it was a little trashed. There's a lot of trash that was left behind by weekenders, and there were some I'll call them some weekend hikers that were there that were quite noisy, and so I wish I'd continued down here. Here though, there's a beautiful sunset. I'll show you what that looks like, and there's also a sign where the trail comes up to and touches the West Virginia border. And you hike along that little border for a little while, and then you're back into Virginia. You don't cross it again until you get to near Harper's Ferry. But But there's a sign up there, and I'll show you those two photographs. Okay, that next day started the long ridgeline walk, and with not a lot of water. So at this campsite, I ended up making sure I was rehydrated, and I carried 3 liters of water out of here. Normally I only carry 2, and that was almost not enough. But you can see a long ridgeline walk. Of course, at the time I thought it was way too rocky. Little did I know what rocks on a trail were really like. And then, now, I had not planned on going to the captain's for the hiker feed that occurs 2 weeks after trail days, but it just so happened that that night I was coming down and people were heading into the captain's. This shelter here was really nasty. I guess maybe because it's close to, relatively close to a road to get in here at this parking area. It was trashed. It was probably there weren't a whole lot of tent sites or hammocking sites, and the shelter itself was just really nasty with garbage. Here at the captain's, this you've seen other people's movies, and I don't have a picture of this, but this is where you get in a chair and you pull yourself by cables across the stream, and he lets you basically camp in his yard. On his porch, if it's raining, he lets you stay there. He's got free sodas there for you, and there's actually an internet that you can use with a Wi-Fi password. I went there, so I went there for the hiker feed. There were a lot of people showing up all hours of the night. Nobody slept. I didn't sleep. I enjoyed the trout that he served us, everybody, but I didn't stay around. It was a 2-day event. I didn't stick around. I got up the next morning and hiked out. In which case, and you don't want to drink from this creek here, so you definitely want to make sure you leave this area with water. Okay, and you're going to climb back up, and you're going to continue to climb. And there was some good water here at the spring. I remember that. And then you get up to Wind Rock, and there was a lot of day hikers that were out heading up here. In the picture that I'm showing you, there is there was actually a couple that were out there for the day hike, and you'll see them in the oh, this is a panorama, so hopefully it'll show up well. Okay, so after Wind Rock here, once again, you still got quite a long ridgeline walk, and then another about 2,000 foot descent back down here to Warspur. I remember the name. I don't really remember the actual staying there at Warspur, but I do remember that you're now beginning to enter an area of exceptional beauty and pastures and views. And so the next day, as we continue up here, a pretty good climb, the 2,000 feet, and we get up. And this is Memorial Weekend, if I remember right. So I was doing a lot of pensive thoughts, and I shared that on my video, and some really pretty views here. And if I'm not, do I have a view of Kelly Knob? I don't think I do from there. I have some videos of it, but I'm not sure if I've got any photographs to share with you, unfortunately. Or if I did, I didn't find them on the particular disc I was looking at. And then once again, everything's up, and then it's back down again. And in Virginia, if you see a high peak in front of you, that means that's where you're going next. So, and here we start down, and once again, this is where you've got a lot of like pastures, and it's just really pretty here. And there is an opportunity to go in here at Newport to do a resupply, and there was a guy in this kind of group that we were hiking same way, same direction. He decided to go in because he was totally out of food, so he was able to get a ride into town. The rest of us here at this chimney, somebody had come out and had put a couple of coolers of sodas and chips and candy and bananas and apples and grapes and for Memorial Weekend, and that was really appreciated and welcomed. And then from there you start a little bit of a climb and you come to the Keifer Oak, which is the largest oak tree on the AT, 18 feet around. It's 300 years old. Definitely, if you're going to come up to Keifer, you might want to try and have somebody, if you're solo hiking, that is with you at the time, so you can actually have them take your photograph, because just taking a photograph of the tree, it just doesn't show anything unless you have the dimension and having somebody at the base of it. And here's a picture of me at the base of the Keifer Oak. Okay, so after the meadows and the farmland that we walked through, and then the Keifer Oak, we're going to start another climb. And this is where I made the big tactical error. Between drinking a couple of sodas and having some water, I didn't grab any here, which I should have done. So by the time that I had made this climb and got up here, and somewhere along this line is where the eastern continental lies down here. Never mind. So anyway, I got up here. It was about 3:30 in the afternoon. And I realized if I wanted to go down to get water, I was going to have to go 0.4 down and back up at this really, really steep switchback. And it's not on here about being steep, but it's way down here. And if you're using the gut hooks, it'll show this shelter way down the side of the mountain, and that's a good indicator that you're going to have a descent. But on here, not quite so much. Now this was so I ended up basically not having enough day left where I could get down to water again, because even this is and some of these are starting to show as being dried up here in Virginia. And so I decided I'd probably better go down and stay for the night. You could tell that bad weather was coming in. And so I made the long trek down, and by the time I got down there, found out that the sign for the water was another 0.2 or 3 down another side trail. So I came in, I got my tent set up, went down to get water, started sprinkling. By the time I got back, it was sprinkling pretty good. I grabbed my food, I went over to the shelter, and this is a massive shelter. It's new. It only says like 6 on here, but it's big, and it has a huge overhanging deck where the picnic tables are underneath it. So if it's bad weather, it's a great place. Now there were some section hikers that were here that were also up with me at the last shelter up at Rice Creek, and I was glad to kind of be in the tent away from the group, even though it rained pretty much all that night. It's kind of cool down here too, because there's some remnants of some old cabins. There's an old homestead. You get your water out of a cistern. Anyway, and so you next morning climb back up and continue this ridgeline walk, and here you hit the Eastern Continental Divide, and I use that for my thumbnail to begin the video, a picture of that sign. And let's see, this is going to start, I believe, we get down, and then we're going to start back up again. So as you see, we're coming down off this mountain, huge descent. So, 1,000, 2,000, maybe a little over 2,000 foot descent. And we're going to then cross. We have a bunch of really cool bridge crossings that are really nice. Because obviously this is a section of the trail that's extremely well maintained, because a lot of people will go up to the Audey Murphy Memorial. And you begin this, it's a pretty good climb. And once again, I think I bypassed getting water here because I thought I had enough. And I didn't want to have to try and get down to the stream, since these footbridges were kind of high bridges. I wish I had done that, because by the time I got up here to the top, I had not even a half a liter. I had half a liter of water left to get back down here to Trout Creek. And you can see that still, it's almost 94 to 3.5 miles. Don't want to do public math. Call it 4, actually 5. If I go 5 miles. Anyway, there's a cool bench up here, and of course, as soon as I get up to the top, I went over and sat down. Pretty soon, a girl came up. About three girls had passed me. They're all kind of the same group, and then Tilly and Charlie, she came and she sat down and she pulled the bladder out of her pack, and it was empty, and she was very discouraged. So I said, "Hey, I'll give you half of what I've got." So I gave her a quarter of a liter of water, and I kept a quarter for myself. And then we kind of started heading up this direction. Well, their friends had stopped here at this little there's some campsites here, and there's a side trail that goes up to the memorial. They weren't interested in going up there, even when I explained what the memorial was and who Audey Murphy was. They still had no desire to go up there, which is actually pretty sad. But let me show you here a picture of the memorial. There's two pictures. One that's backed off a little bit so you can kind of see it, and then the other one is a close up that you could pause and actually read the memorial. For those who don't know, Audey Murphy was the youngest and the most decorated. Well, he's the youngest Medal of Honor recipient ever. And I think he's only 17 when he got it, and he's the most decorated soldier in World War II. Okay, and then he went on to become a movie actor and starred in some westerns. And he was the first one. You know, they called it shell shock back in the World Wars. Today we call it PTSD. But he was at the forefront of championing help for veterans who were suffering from PTSDs. Anyway, here's a couple of pictures. Okay, so after the memorial, it was just a pretty good descent down here to the creek, and there are campsites on both sides of the stream. It doesn't show any camping here, but I elected to stay there for the night. Once again, had rain coming in, and it did rain all night. It's coming back out of Trout Creek the next morning. Kind of started this through this area here. It was really kind of pretty. The sunlight was coming through the trees, and if you've seen that one slide that I used that has the saying about the trail from oh gosh, having a brain stall with his name right now. I took that there, but I'm gonna insert another beautiful view here of that part of the trail and climbing up. Okay, this big climb as we're coming up is to get up to Dragon's Tooth. And this is definitely the easier way to get up to Dragon's Tooth. You do have some ridge lines in here. And coming down from Dragon's Tooth, it's very, very steep. A lot of climbing up rocks using rebar handholds. And the best way to make this descent right through here is to turn around and go backwards. It's almost like this trail was built as a heading southbound, and all the places to put your feet are sloped such that it's advantageous if you're climbing it going up. So if you're trying to come down it this way, just turn around and go backwards. That turned out to be the easiest way to do this. Let me show you what Dragon's Tooth looks like here. I've got a couple of photos for you. Okay, so coming off Dragon's Tooth, as we mentioned, it's very steep coming down, and this is where the trail provides. You might remember the day before, I shared some water up here. Even though I left hydrated, this drained me. This day it was hot. It was so hot this day. I was out of water coming back down, and some day hikers coming up were carrying a gallon jug of water, and they actually shared with me about a half a liter of water. So you know, the trail provided something for me. I helped somebody over here, and somebody helped me here. Got down here to the road, and there's the Four Pines Hostel. That's just a quick hike up the road, and this is where I had planned on doing a resupply here at what is that, Catawba? Anyway, there's a grocery store there, and they at the hostel. They don't really pick up. I guess they do. They were doing some pickup for a fee, but since you could just hike in, and then for us that was staying there, they made a run down to the gas station where you could do a resupply, and they had pizzas and hamburgers and things like that they would cook up for you. So anyway, this was a hostel that was a donation hostel, Four Pines Hostel. It was open donation for the stay. They had free sodas, and it was like a big garage that they had just old bunks and couches and chairs and tables and stuff in, and you could just crash in there. So I ended up doing I think I did a 0 there to kind of recuperate. Was not feeling real good. I think some of my initial problems that took me off the trail and eventually were starting to flare up with my colon, and so I took an extra day here. And the next section will be a short section, and but we'll say that for the new year. All right, everybody. Take care, and until next time.